Peace, peace, peace. Say Lafayette. It's gonna be quick. I'm gonna get into the presentation in just a second. I'm going to play the commercial for Spears of the Mossy real quick while I'm sharing the show, and then we'll get right into it because I do not plan on this being long at all. Yeah, this won't be long at all, bro. Alright, okay. Let me able to share the the video as I was playing the commercial. So what we gonna do is we're gonna share it right now. All right. So y'all give me a second. Anybody that come in, just give me a second. While I share the show. But yeah, man, if you haven't got your copy yet of Spirits of the Mossy, Volume 1, then you slacking. It's been a lot of people getting their books. And giving great feedback. Feedback, man. The feedback that we getting, the love that we getting is just crazy. It's just insane. We didn't expect to get this much support, but man, it's just humbling to know that we can come out of the woodworks, drop a book out of nowhere, and we get this much support and love behind us. You know, it's just a very humbling experience. And hopefully everybody keep that same energy for Volume 2, because it is in the works and it will be out very soon. August is the date. I can't remember the exact date. I want to say March 16th or 14th, somewhere in the middle of March, or not March, but April. Not April either. I'm tripping. August. So somewhere in the middle of August, we will be dropping Spirits of the Mossy Volume 2. And to be honest, man, I'm more excited for Volume 2 than I was for Volume 1. I don't know if it's because of the love that we've been receiving from Volume 1. I don't know if it's because I feel like we're going to go harder on Volume 2. Or maybe it's a combination of the two. You know, I don't know, but I know I'm highly excited for this Volume 2. I can't wait for it to come out. But yeah, man, if you ain't got Volume 1, then you tripping. Anybody that's friends with us, any of the members on Facebook, then you know and you see people getting their books. People are posting pics of their books, giving reviews, and giving feedback of how they feel when they got it, how they feel while they're reading it. Like, it's just a lot of love, man. So we just need y'all to keep that same energy. I'm almost done here sharing this show. And then we're going to get into it. Right into it, because this won't be long. I am rebuttaling a couple of claims that were made a while back. You know, this is something I've been holding on to. I didn't know if I was going to actually put it out there, but I said, yo, what the hell? Why not? And I just recently spoke to this brother on one of his live streams, and I had already seen this video, but he referred me back to it, right? So that's what we're going to be addressing. Alright, now that the show is shared, let me share my screen. Okay. Can you hear me now, Vasa? Let me know if you can hear me now. I'm gonna go back, right? Okay, yeah. That's sound now. Okay, this is a method. This is a rebuttal to the methodological approach to Taharka Bey taken on March 8th, 2020, in a live stream entitled "Professor James Small's More Don't Mean Black: Correcting the Professor Inside Netta." That is the title of the live stream that Brother Taharka created on March 8th, 2020. It's entitled "Professor James Small's More Don't Mean Black: Correcting the Professor Inside Netta." Like, for one, I don't understand how you are correcting someone on information that you do not have a grasp on. But I'll continue. The points that will be addressed here is Wagadu Empire in relation to the Mauritanian Empire, Moors, black and white, admixture of North African populations, Google translation errors, the relationship between the letters U and V, African slave markets, the ethnic composition of Mauritania, and more. I'm gonna go through these a little faster now since I had to go back. Okay, 38-minute mark. Well, first of all, if you are familiar, if you are familiar in the least with Moorish World TV, then you would know. Hold on a second. Then you would know that when Taharka starts a stream, he usually goes for about 20 minutes on a basically a live concert. He raps for about 20 minutes, right? So he didn't really get into the information until about the 38-minute mark. So at 38 minutes, Taharka shows a Facebook comment that he will later try to connect with what he presents. An emphasis is placed on the modern state of Ghana. The modern state of Ghana. Keep that in mind. So let me read the comment just in case those of you that are here or will watch the archives cannot see this. All right. It says, I hear our African brothers and sisters in the States calling themselves Moors, Israelites, etc. But we in Africa have never heard of these words before because slave masters use these words to confuse our brothers and sisters from tracing back their roots because West Africa was the main doors and routes used in the transporting of blacks, while the English used Ghana in transporting to the Americas. The French used Senegal. If you speak English, please trace your roots through Ghana, while the French should trace their roots through Senegal. We in Africa are not Moors, while our brothers in the diaspora would be Moors. I think he's asking why would our brothers in the diaspora be Moors if we here in Africa or West Africa are not Moors. Whether I agree or disagree with the sentiment is really irrelevant, you know. So with the sentiment is really irrelevant, you know. Okay, just making sure my sound is correct. Okay. So what we're gonna do is this. At 40 minutes and 50 seconds in, he shares a screenshot of the New World Encyclopedia article for the Ghana Empire. Now remember, earlier he placed an emphasis. An emphasis was placed on the modern state of Ghana. He shares a screenshot of the New World Encyclopedia article for the Ghana Empire, aka Ouagadougou. Right after reading, at 42 minutes and 26 seconds, he states that his main point of showing this was the first sentence. And I will read the first sentence for you. The Ghana Empire, or Ouagadougou Empire, was located in what is now southeastern Mauritania, western Mali, and eastern Senegal. All right, see, yeah, as you see the screenshots, these are screenshots, actual screenshots from his presentation, if you can call it that. And at 55 minutes and 7 seconds, he shares this map, right? And at 55 minutes and 35 seconds, he circles the entire North Africa and claims that the kingdom of ancient Mauritania is probably, I quote, probably that and then some. But once it started being conquered, it shrunk down to modern Mauritania. This is what the brother is claiming. All right. So my response is here he is clearly conflating the Ouagadougou Empire with the contemporary state of Ghana. The Ouagadougou Empire was a Soninke empire in origin that reigned from circa 300 CE to circa 1100 CE. The Kingdom of Mauritania was a Berber or Amazigh in origin that becomes annexed in circa 44 CE, right? Almost 250 year gap. These two entities are not contemporary. They do not overlap chronologically. They are not related. As for the location of these ancient entities in relation to the location of their modern counterparts, they do not overlap geographically as well. Right, and you see my sources at the bottom. I'm using the most simple, readily found sources as possible because this is light, man. This is light. I'm using the same sources that he did. Wiki, Encyclopedia Britannica, New World Encyclopedia. I'm using that type of stuff. So, to further my point, this is a map of Africa. As you can see, the red is the modern territory of Ghana, right? The modern state of Ghana. The green is the territories of the Ghana Empire, right? You see the territories of the Ghana Empire north of modern Ghana. The blue would be territories shared by modern Ghana and the Ghana Empire. You do not see any blue because there were no overlapping geographically, just like there was no overlapping chronologically, right? So this is a mistake to try to conflate these two. And it is a mistake to try to conflate these two. This is the ancient Mauritania. This up here in the northwest Africa. You see how close Mauritania is to Spain, right? And then you look at a modern map, you see the modern Mauritania. It's in a totally different place. Right, correct. Ancient Mauritania, or the Kingdom of Mauritania, would have been here. Part of modern Morocco, part of modern Algeria. Right, that would have been Mauritania, not here. Right, so it's a difference. We always got to keep that in mind. The modern states of some of these places doesn't necessarily correlate to the ancient nations of these places, or kingdoms or empires. At 44 minutes and 20 seconds, a screenshot of an Encyclopedia Britannica article for Berbers is shared. He reads a few lines to emphasize the Maori were a group of Berbers and that Berbers are native to North Africa, which I agree with. Berbers are native to North Africa. They are indigenous as well to North Africa. So, it's nothing to fight with there. But we will flatten out a couple of other issues with these Berbers, these indigenous Berbers in North Africa. But for now, let's keep going. At 49 minutes and 47 seconds and at 50 minutes and 29 seconds, more screenshots from Wiki and an unknown source for Mauritania and Mauritania, which is Mauritania with an E, is the kingdom, the ancient Mauritania, and Mauritania with the I is the modern, right? To show that the relation to Africa and Berbers. So he showed these two screenshots to correlate African Berbers, which we all know that Berbers are indigenous to Africa, North Africa specifically. That's no problem. But the problem is when you try to place yourself in North Africa, you try to say these people were us. These Berbers in North Africa were us. First of all, never mind, we'll deal with that in a later slide. North African human populations are the result of an amalgam of migrations due to their strategic location at a crossroad of three continents limited to the south by the Sahara Desert, which has acted as a permeable barrier with the rest of the African continent. The Mediterranean basin on the coast, which has allowed the transit of maritime civilizations from Europe, and the connection to the Middle East by the Arabian Peninsula and the Sinai, which has permitted constant migrations by ground. So what they're saying is outsiders and foreigners been all up and through North Africa since we can remember, right? So when with the settlements of foreigners, you gonna have intermixing, right? Historical records affirm that North Africa was populated by different groups supposed to be the ancestors of the current Berber peoples. By the arrival of the Phoenicians in the second millennium BC and the posterior conquest of the area by the Romans, the Roman control persisted until the 5th century CE, although non-Romanized Berber tribes persisted all over the region. The Arab expansion started in the Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century CE through Egypt and expanded until reaching the westernmost part of North Africa, i.e. the Maghreb. The rule of the Arab dynasties ended with the decline in the 16th century, when the Ottoman Empire took control of the region until colonization during the 18th and 19th centuries by European countries. The complexity of these known and unknown historical migrations might have left genetic traces in North African populations that could be reconstructed by recent haplotype-based approaches. So a lot of mixing was going on there in North Africa, which, is normal. If you look at the situation that they were in, basically being somewhat of a bridge. People came through North Africa from the east or the Middle East. People came to North Africa from the north, the Mediterranean area, and people came, from Spain from the east. Or the west, excuse me. So it was people all up and through North Africa from as long as we could go back, as far as we could go back. Excuse me. Was North Africa a transatlantic slave market? Now we know, or we should, that African Americans were brought from West, Central, and a few from Southern Africa via the transatlantic slave trade, right? So to look to see where we came from, we must follow the transatlantic slave trade. So was North Africa a part of that transatlantic slave trade or that trade market? The Atlantic slave trade or the transatlantic slave trade involved the transportation of slave traders by slave traders of enslaved African people, mainly to the Americas. The slave trade regularly used the triangle trade route and its middle passage and existed from the 16th to 19th centuries. The vast majority of those who were enslaved and transported in the transatlantic slave trade were peoples from Central and West Africa who were, hold on, let me rewind that. The vast majority of those who were enslaved and transported in the transatlantic slave trade were people from Central and West Africa who had been sold by other West Africans to Western Europeans, slave traders, with a small number being captured directly by the slave traders in coastal raids. This was the beginning of Europeans coming to, or the Portuguese coming to West Africa and seeing these black Africans thinking they are Moors and snatching them up. They were nowhere near as successful as they were when they found out the trade from the Moors and the Arabs and got involved in it themselves. So the raids, I would label them as unsuccessful, but that was the beginning of European colonization of West Africa. The Europeans actually being involved in the slave trade comes after these coastal raids, right? Once they seen that it was a much easier way to get these blacks, they fell in line. Now, this is a diagram of the trade routes of the transatlantic slave trade, right? Now we see Morocco up here. This is Morocco. This is Mauritania over here. Where are we coming from? Senegambia, Sierra Leone, and on down. You feel me? Central West Africa. You divide Benin, Bada Biafra, Gold Coast, the Slave Coast. You see, that's where we coming from. We're not coming from Mauritania. We're not coming from Morocco. So even if these people in North Africa were sub-Saharan Africans, they weren't us. Which, we know for a fact that they weren't sub-Saharan Africans at the period of time during the transatlantic slave trade, at least So let's keep going. Well, what was the North African slave market? What was it? It was the Barbary slave market, the Barbary coast, or the Barbary slave market. The Barbary slave trade refers to slave markets on the Barbary coast of North Africa, which included the Ottoman provinces of Algeria, Tunisia, and Tripoli. This is where you, if you were taken up in a slave trade in North Africa, this is a slave trade that you would have been a part of, the Barbary slave trade, right? And the independent Sultanate of Morocco between the 16th and the middle of the 18th century. The Ottoman provinces in North Africa were nominally under Ottoman suzerainty, but in reality, they were mostly autonomous. The North African slave markets were part of the Arab slave trade. And again, we know we weren't part of the Arab slave trade. We're part of the European slave trade, or the Atlantic or Transatlantic slave trade, right? So this is the Barbary coast slave market. This is where they're going. You see that? They're going up to France, Spain, Portugal, Naples. They're going up towards Turkey, Ottoman Empire. This is what's going on as compared to the transatlantic slave trade on the Middle Passage, where we are all over this way. We going west, right? So that you can't get the two confused. All right, man. I'm almost done already. Hold on, let me check. Okay, at the 57-minute mark, this pie chart shows this pie chart. Ethnic composition of Mauritania in 2003. Right? The ethnic composition of Mauritania is shown. He reiterated that these are terms used by Europeans. He said these are European designations. It seems to be confused by the terminology of white Moor and black Moor. Right? He disregards the terms and contradicts himself by saying that there's science behind these labels. First, he's like, nah, these are European designations, which is kind of crazy because so is Moor. That's a European designation. Moor, and every variation of it is European designations, right? If you follow that word back, you trace it back, it goes back to Europeans. They are the ones that broadly generalize, right? We see it earlier with the term Ethiopia, right? Or how they label all of us under one blanket term. This is European doing. If you read Arabic sources, for the most part, they don't do that. They know who we are or who we were because we had names for our ethnic groups. Fula, Hausa, Mandinka, etc. The only time you see these generalized blanket terms is 9 times out of 10 when Europeans are involved. So let's keep going. And to correct that, since the brothers seem confused on white Moors and black Moors, let's settle it. The Badanis or the white Moors. I didn't write this. This is from the Encyclopedia of the Peoples of Africa and the Middle East by Jamie Stokes. I didn't write this. The Badanis, or the white Moors, are two of the main subgroups of Moors of Mauritania. White Moors have been accused of continuing the ancient practice of keeping slaves in present-day Mauritania, and they are descended from the Berbers and Arabs. So when you see these Moors talking about they white people and all that nonsense, all that craziness, it says it got to do with law. No, they had to do with status. These white Moors were Berbers and Arabs, and they were thought of to be more noble than the black Moors. Who are the black Moors? Let's go to the other side. I didn't write this. This is, you see the source at the bottom for the wiki page for Haratin. What is the Haratin? Haratin are a group of closely related North African peoples who are native to the northwestern regions of the Sahara, especially in the Maghreb. They are particularly found in modern Mauritania, where they form a plurality, also Morocco, and the Western Sahara and Algeria. In Tunisia and Libya, they are referred to as Choachim. I don't know if I said that correctly, but you can always look it up. I got it out, laid out for you. They form the single largest defined ethno-linguistic group in Mauritania, where they account for 40% of the population, about 1.5 mil, right? They have been called a socially distinct class of workers, or a caste that emerged from a legacy of slavery in Africa under the Arabs, Berbers, and the Moors. All right, let's run that back. Let's run that last sentence back. They have been called a socially distinct class of workers, or a caste that emerged from a legacy of slavery in Africa under the Arabs, the Berbers, and the Moors. So the black Moors are the low caste. They are the Haratin, which are slaves and the slaves and the descendants of slaves. Let me be more specific. They are the sub-Saharan African slaves and the sub-Saharan African descendants of slaves. So these are the black Moors, as compared to the white Moors, who have been accused, because of course, they're not going to admit it, they have been accused of continuing the ancient practice of keeping slaves to this day. Yeah, they still doing it. So the black Moors are and were enslaved by the white Moors. That's why they want to be white. That's why they want to be white Moors. Ridiculous. Now pay attention. I want y'all to pay attention to how these words are formed. Notice the substitution of V for U. Now you're still gonna have that V sound, but I'll touch on that later. This is the history and the description of Africa and the notable things therein contained. Volume 1, Leo Africanus. Leo Africanus was a Berber. Yes, he was a Berber. And his work, this book that I'm reading from, of his, is from the 16th century, circa 1550. So he was around, when the whole Moorish Empire was on the decline. It wasn't starting, it was already on the decline, right? So, and he was a Berber himself. So he would know, right? Let's check it out. Moreover, this part of the world is inhabited especially by five principal nations, to wit, by the people called Kafri or Kafatis, that is to say, outlaws or lawless by the Abyssinians, the Egyptians, and the Arabs, and the Arabians, excuse me, and the Africans or Moors, properly so called, which last are of two kinds. Last, meaning the Moors, are of two kinds, two kind of Moors. We just touched on that, right? Namely, white or tawny Moors, same people. Um, some call them white, some call them tawny, but they would consider themselves as white, even though their skin color might be tawny. And it's all subjective. Um, a Berber, a North African Berber, in relation to a Christian European from Spain would be darker, right? But a North African Berber compared to a sub-Saharan African would be white. So I mean, it's all in context. Was the last two kinds, namely white or tawny Moors and Negroes or black Moors. The emphasis is on the two kinds of Moors, the white and the black. Let's keep going. Now I give visual examples of this. These are actually Haratin on the left from Mauritania, right? Slaves and the descendants of slaves. And these will be your white Moors on the right. You see how they can be called tawny when compared to a Christian European, but they could be called white in contrast to the dark skin of a sub-Saharan African. So now hopefully you understand. White Moors on the right, black Moors on the left. Noble and free, because this is what they call themselves. Noble and free. This is where you get the free white man shit from. Noble and free. This is what they call themselves. This is what these white Moors call themselves, right? The black Moors were enslaved and the descendants of those that were enslaved. So gotta drive that into y'all head, man. In a minute, at an hour and 10 minutes and 24 seconds, he shows this definition of Moor. I don't know why he's doing it this way instead of, just taking the whole screenshot so we would know where this came from. But I'll read it. North African Berber, late 14th century, from the Old French Moor or More, from the medieval Mortis, from Latin Martus, inhabitants of Mauritania, Northwest Africa, a region now corresponding to northern Algeria and Morocco. From Greek Moros, perhaps a native name. They will take that and run with it, even though native and indigenous does not mean the same thing. Berbers were actually, they were natives, but they were actually indigenous, or else cognate with moros, black. But this adjective only appears in late Greek and may as well be from the people's name as the reverse. Being a dark people in relation to Europeans, remember I told you that all of this is relative, right? All this black, white, dark light, all this shit is relative. Their name in the Middle Ages was a synonym for Negro. Later, between the 16th century and the 17th century, it was used indiscriminately of Muslims, right? Persians, Arabs, etc., regardless of race or ethnicity, but especially those in India. So you got Hindu Moors too, huh? At 111.20, he uses Google Translate. Remember, I told you we're gonna touch on Google Translate. He uses Google Translate to say that moros does not mean black in Greek. Why? Because the word that is given by Google Translate is mavros instead of moros, right? If you don't know what's going on, it will make sense to you. But if you do know what's going on, it makes absolutely no sense. So let's get to it. Mavros and Mavros. Google Translate error. The the source of this information. I cannot move this. I'm trying out a new app for my presentations. Okay, y'all will see it. In recent years, due to the reduction in cost and delivery time, considerable progress has been made in the training of translation engines, growing the demand for machine translations. But can this become a reality? In fact, the translation quality of Google Translate has improved quite a lot, particularly in the language combinations that are widely spoken, such as French or English, and remarkably, when the target language is English. But what happens with not so widely spoken languages or languages with complex grammar and syntax? What happens? Greek, for example. Let me go back to remind y'all that we are directly dealing with Greek. So, what a coincidence that they talk about Greek in this article. Greek, for example, uses cases, specific rules, and demonstrates peculiar. I can never say that goddamn word. Peculiarities that at this moment a computer cannot work out on its own, right? Also, in many languages, one word has more than one meaning or changes its meaning depending on the syntax. And this is where the famous Google Translate falls short compared to a professional translator. So, all this is to say that Google Translate is coming up in the world. It's getting better. It's getting more accurate. But for mostly for more widely spoken languages, and especially if the target language that you're trying to get it translated to is in English, right? But for less widely spoken languages, you're gonna still have more errors. For certain languages with specific rules and certain grammar rules and syntax rules, like you're still gonna have problems with Google Translate. Bottom line is Google Translate is not the end all be all. You should find a person. With social media today, we can reach out to anybody from any part of the world, man. If you really was taking this serious, all you have to do is hit somebody up that's Greek. Me myself, on a I'm on a mission to learn Spanish, Espanol. So I know for a fact that even within Facebook, there are groups to help with language learning. I'm in multiple Spanish learning groups. I'm in an Arab or a Arabic learning group, and I guarantee you, if I search for a Greek learning group to help learn the Greek language, there will be uh, plenty of people in there that speak Greek that will be able to explain to you this nuance that he seemed to miss. So in Latin, a stemless variant shape of the upsilon was borrowed in earlier times. Now, hold on. Let me. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the upsilon, but real quick, I want to show an image of the upsilon. This is the upsilon, right? You might just say, hey, it looks like a Y to us, a Y and a U, or a Y and a V, you know. This is the type of stuff that that make me kind of want to get into language and linguistics, right? So let me get back into the presentation. I just wanted y'all to know what an upsilon is, right? Because this was all new to me before I put this together. In Latin, a stemless variant shape of the upsilon was borrowed in early times as V, either directly from the Western Greek alphabet or from the Etruscan alphabet as an intermediary to represent the same oo sound, as well as the consonantal woo sound. So the U and the W sound in English, right? Thus, Noom, originally spelled NVM, is what how we were English speakers would pronounce that. But it was pronounced Noom, that V would make an O sound, the sound of an English U. And Via was pronounced Wea. During the late Middle Ages, two minuscule glyphs developed which were both used for sounds including O and the modern V. So U and V, the English sounds for U and V. The pointed form V was written at the beginning of a word, while the rounded form U was used in the middle or end, regardless of sound. I remember a couple of slides back, I told you to pay attention to the spelling. As you notice, the U, the English U, is being used in place of the English V. You also see it right here in the word five, right? English was different. English shit been different, like all languages, you know. Let me see, is that it? Yeah, that's it. But you can even see today like how they add the E to Moors, how they add the E on the end of lawless. They had the E on outlaws. You can see the differences. The extra L on principal. So, yeah, let me just go back. Start that one over. During the late Middle Ages, two minuscule glyphs developed, which were both used for sounds, including U, the U sound, and the modern V, the V sound. The pointed form V was used at the beginning of a word, while the rounded form U was used in the middle of the end, regardless of sound. So, whereas valor and excuse appeared as in modern printing, have and upon were printed as HAUE or VPON, but this is have and this is upon. You see the interchangeability of the U and the V. This is the problem that he had, right? Remember, Mavros. He said Moros is supposed to be the word, right? And he goes to Google Translate and types in black to try to translate it into Greek, and he gets Mavros with the English V. But the interchangeability of these two letters was not something that he looked into, right? But I looked into it. The first distinction between the letters U and V is recorded in a Gothic script from 1386, where V preceded U. By the mid 16th century, the V form was used to present the consonant and the U, the vowel, giving us the modern letter U. So by the mid 16th century, they made the distinction between the two instead of using them so interchangeably, right? So they start to make a distinction and set this in stone. Okay, this is U and this is V, and we're not going to use them interchangeably anymore. Capital and majuscule U was not accepted as a distinct letter until many years later. All right. And there's the source for that, the wiki article for the letter V. I think this is a slide that I started to put in and I changed my mind. I never took it out. Russian. This is the global map of indigenous skin colors. I've shown this several times. Brother Unk shows this all the time, and I think it's something that we should keep showing to people grasp the understanding of what this is and what it means, you know. When you look at North Africa, right? Look at North Africa where Mauritania would have been. Hold on, let me go back. Look at North Africa where Mauritania would have been. That would have been their complexion, right? Is that not the tawny complexion that I just showed in these white Moors, right? On top of this would have been the natural skin pigmentation for the indigenous people, right? The same with Spain, right? But not only did they have light skin pigmentation, on top of this, they had foreigners coming in that they were intermixing with. Lighter foreigners coming in that they were intermixing with, right? They got it coming from the east, they got it coming from the north, the Mediterranean area, and they got it coming from the west, which is Spain, Portugal area. right? And all of these people are coming from this whole area, and many people are settling here, intermixing with these indigenous North Africans who are already of a light complexion. So, how do you think, as an African American Moor, how do you think that these were your people when the genetic data shows that African Americans come from this area, this region? We're below the Sahara, right? Below the Sahara, but west and central area. All this is all us, not up here. We didn't come from there. And I showed you the trade routes. We got like two more slides and I'm out of here. In his article, The Moors, Ross Brain considers the meanings. And if I did a presentation about a week or two ago on Kofi Pasai TV. You should go to check that out. Subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of dope information on there, man. A lot of dope information. And the Masawari clan too. Subscribe to both of these channels. You are guaranteed to find something for you. But if you are familiar with Kofi Pasai TV, I did a short presentation on the term, breaking down the term Moor, about 2 weeks ago. I used this same slide here, so you may hear some of the same stuff that you heard from there, but you need to get this engraved in your mind anyway. So let's go. In his article, The Moors, Ross Brand considers the meaning and significance of Moorish identity in literary works, film, and scholarship. Brand notes that even today, the figure is employed regularly in academic circles and in popular culture without much question or reflection, and without clarification of who precisely the Moors are. Recounting a history of the uses of the term Moor, he explains that Andalusi Arabic sources, as opposed to later, hold on, let me clarify. Recounting a history of the uses of the term Moor, he explains that Andalusi Arabic sources, Andalusia is Spain and Portugal area of the Iberian Peninsula. This was Andalusi, or Al-Andalus, the lands of Spain and Portugal that were conquered by these Moors. So that's why you will have Andalusi Arabic sources, because Andalusia were lands of Spain and Portugal that were taken over by Moors. And of course, Moors spoke Arabic. And as opposed to later Mudéjar and Morisco sources. And Mudéjar is Moors. Mudéjar and Moriscos are Moors that abandoned Islam to convert to Christianity, right? So let me start over from the top. Recounting a history of the uses of the term Moor, he explains that Andalusi Arabic sources, as opposed to later Mudéjar and Morisco sources and Al-Jamiado, neither refer to individuals as Moors nor recognize any such group, culture, or community. So the Andalusi Arabic sources, these Arabic sources, do not mention the term Moor as referring to any individuals or groups, community, or culture. Why? Because Moor is a blanket, generalized term. And as I said before, The people that do these, or the people that use these blanket and generalized terms, are the Europeans. So you will hear, you might catch a Moor actually using the term Moor, or an Arab using the term Moor, or a Berber using the term Moor. But guess what? Guess where they at? They in Europe. They in Europe. They've been Europeanized. You will not hear that from the Moors of Africa. You will not. You definitely won't hear that from nobody in sub-Saharan Africa, bro. It's just not happening. Moor is a term applied from the outside by Europeans, yet unlike relatively stable terms of Roman provenance inherited by Christians such as Arabs, Ishmaelites, and Saracens, the significance of the term varies in particular historical moments and shifts over time. So this word can mean multiple things at multiple different times, right? It's not concrete. It's not set in stone. And this is a European term. Early in the history of Al-Andalus, Moor signified Berber as a geographic and ethnic identity. Later writing, however, from the 12th and 13th century Christian kingdoms demonstrates the transformation of Moor from a term signifying Berber into a general term, generalizing again even more, into a general term referring primarily to Muslims regardless of ethnicity, living in recently conquered Christian lands, and secondarily to those residing in what was still left of Al-Andalus. In addition to shifting the significance of the term from one geographically based ethnic group to a broad religious group, this use of the term flattens out the differences between the various ethnic Muslim communities within the Islamic kingdoms throughout the 8th to 12th centuries, the significant conflict between which contributed to the political upheavals in the Islamic world during that time. Yo, so that's it. Made it a little longer than I thought it was gonna be, but since I had a conversation with the brother online on the live stream, on the last live stream that he had, and we kind of went back and forth a little bit. He told me I need to check out his video that he did for Professor James Smalls. And, you know, I told him I had already looked at it and I already got something on it. I just hadn't put it out yet. So I felt like this was the time to put it out. Plus, you know, I want to be able to start dropping more content more regularly on this channel. So you see the shield, you see the book, Spears of the Mossy, Volume 1. You can get this on KofiPodSideTV.com, or you can go to Amazon. And man, I'm so proud, man. When you go to Amazon and you type in Spears, just type in Spears, it's gonna automatically give you the option. It's gonna be like the third option. It's gonna be, let me check. When you go to Amazon and type in Spears, you get Spears with Pride, Spears something else, Spears Weapons, and then you get Spears of the Mossy. Like, it automatically pop up to, it's almost like y'all been searching for the book so much that, like, when you type in Spears, it automatically gives you the option to search for Spears of the Mossy. And man, we appreciate all the love, man. We appreciate it all. Yeah, you your copy of Spears of the Mossy again on Amazon. Just go to Amazon, type in Spears of the Mossy, boom, pop right up for you. Or you can go to KofiPasatTV.com. We also, I believe, Kofi just got more shirts in. With the Spears of the Mossy shirts. I know those were selling like hotcakes, and I think if I am correct, I think we have some different shirts in too. Let me see if I can get a picture of that, of these shirts. Okay, let me see. I'll just do it like this. Okay, yeah. Here we go. There we go. These are the new shirts I think Kofi has. As I learn, we all learn. We all know that's Kofi's favorite phrase, and it's come to be more of the motto for the research team. So I think this shirt is very dope, man. As I learn, we all learn. You got first of all, the red, black, and green in the background. We got Africa on the west, and we got the Americas, north and south on the east. We got the warrior with the spear and the shield, and we got our actual shield for the research team on the bottom, man. I think it's super dope. If you want one of the new shirts, hit Kofi up. Or, if if you can't get in touch with Kofi, hit me up and I will go to Kofi directly and let him know. I'm not sure if these are on the website yet, but yeah, man, it's dope. And we have too I think he has like tags. Let me see if I can pop up the tags, the plates. It's like license plates, right? So let me see. All right, so this is the plates, the license plates. As I learned, we all learn. It's the same logo as the shirt. It's the same motto as the shirt. It's just on the license plate. I think Kofi only made like a couple of these. Just he wanted to see, if y'all are messing with this, if y'all like it, if y'all liking it, and y'all want to order it, it's something that we'll do. But if not, then just leave it as is. But I think it's dope. I think it's dope, man. You'll be able to fly your flag, that red, black, and green, while you riding, right? You get to rep the red, black, and green, the Pan African flag, while you riding, and you get to rep Kofi Pasai TV research team too, while you riding. And I think it's dope. If you're a warrior, then this is for you. This is for you, family. But yeah, man, that's it, man. That's all I had, bro. If you have any suggestions, anything that you would like to see on the next build or next presentation, if anybody want to come in and just chat about or have dialogues and discussions about current events or anything of that nature, African history of the past, American history of the past, man, just let me know. I'm open to it. and that's a good way to get more content on the channel. So with that being said, appreciate everybody for coming through. If you did come through, I appreciate everybody that will view this in the archives. I appreciate everybody that like and share the show and show some type of support. I appreciate it, man. Uh, Odabo, I'm out.